now have the power.
Cool. Sorry about that. Yeah, I thought I overheard you were maybe asking about like this syntax right here.
It's the bracket right after the I++.
This one?
That one, yeah. Like, okay, so it goes down to the bottom. I was confused on, like, because it didn't add that. So you have to add that before the if.
Yeah, so when I look at the for statement, and I'm just gonna get rid of this for now. I'll bring this back, but yeah. So this bracket right here is like, this is the start of the for loop. This is the end. So like, I could do a whole bunch of stuff inside of here. So this is the code it's going to run for each time we're going through it. Does that?
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. I was just confused why, yeah, some of the brackets didn't line up, so.
Yeah.
You.
Oh, I was gonna ask right before you froze. What is the I %2 equal 0 mean?
This is just this is like that's the modulus operator. So it's like, you know, plus, minus, times. It's a math operator that is doing the remainder of division. So I is just a number, right? I is starting at 0, and we're through each time we're counting by 10. See, I'm logging I right here. So it's going from 0 to 10. So all I'm doing is I'm just checking each time through the loop, is that number divisible by 0?
Divisible by 2. Okay.
Yeah.
And then the I++ is just adding 1 to it every time.
Yep.
Okay.
So that's a for loop. Let's do a brief intro into arrays, because we're going to go into arrays next, but let's just create it, because one thing that's very common is looping over arrays. So here's my array. Let's just do an array of like strings. Just have it be like A, B, C, D. So let's say I want to go through each of these things and log each thing in my array. So I could do a for loop. So I'm going to have I equal to 0, because arrays are actually indexed from 0. And that's how we grab the values, is by grabbing their index. So that's the first thing is always going to be 1 or 0. Then the second index is 1. Third index is 2, because they start counting at 0. Computer scientists, they like to start counting at 0. So I'm going to start I at 0. And I want this for loop to continue, because how many things do I have in my array? 4 things. So I'd want to like do this loop 4 times. So I could say, but I'm starting at 0. So I want to count up, like, really, let's do this first. I want to count 0, 1, 2, 3. So let's say I want to count up to 3 by 0. I would say, as long as I is less than 4. And then I'm going to do an I++. Console.log I. And I'm just going to do right here so we can see it, console.log array example. Okay. So I'm counting from 0, 1, 2, 3. And how I can actually grab these values from my array is I can index them. I can say array at, 0 or 1 or 2 or 3. So I can use that I variable now. I have an extra bracket. So I have let me just go through this syntax there so we can see it together. So line 49, I'm getting a syntax error. So when you see a syntax error, you know there's something wrong with like the structure of your code. Like it's not syntactically correct. So JavaScript doesn't know. Like it has to be perfect syntactically for JavaScript to run it. And it's giving me a little hint. So it's telling me this line. It doesn't always, it says it's missing a parentheses. That's actually not the reason why it's breaking, but it does kind of point me to the direction. And I look here, so I'm trying to find my syntax area. Actually, where I see that red squiggly line, that is it. I have an extra curly bracket. So now I can save it, rerun. And now I'm doing A, B, C, D. So I'm going through each thing and I'm logging the array at I, which is just going to be a number. So if what's going to happen if I do this console.log array 0 through this loop after kind of seeing this? Any guesses?
It's only
Just
gonna log.
display A.
Yeah, it's going to do A. How many times? 4 times.
Just once. 4.
4 times. I'm going through the loop 4
Yeah.
times. So now I'm going to do I. Cool. But what if I come in here and now I add a thing, like I do like F, I skip E, it doesn't really matter. Let's do E. Now I'm not going to log E, so I have to change this to 5. Well, there's actually on arrays, there's a property called length, which grabs the length of the array. Cool. So now I can go through and now like this for loop can, be dynamic and log each thing in the array, in my array. But I'm going to say this now, since we've done that demo, don't use a for loop. I know we spent just some time on for loops. I rarely use for loops. You will need to use them every now and then. Like if you want to do something like 10 times or you want to do something in a certain amount of times. But a lot of the times when we're doing loops, we're looping over arrays, and we saw we could get it to work with a for loop, but there's a cleaner way to do this, and that is the for each method. And there's a lot more of these methods. Use array methods over arrays. I'm just going to briefly, since we haven't talked about functions, I'll just, black this out just to show you how we could do this. Because this is a lot more readable. I mean, you don't necessarily know what this is right now, but you will today. But I'm going to do array dot for each. I give it this weird little, it's a function, and then I just console.log C. It does the same thing. I don't know, you're beginning out, you're beginners. Which one looks more clean to you or like easier to read?
The top one?
The top one, that one's easier for you? That
Yeah,
might,
yeah, to be honest.
that might be, I guarantee in like 2 weeks, this is going to be, when I look at a for loop, I'm like, oh my God. I mean, I get it, but this is a lot easier in my mind, because I can like rename this to like, that's really just a character. So I can do array dot for each, do each character, console.log character. This is like for let I equals 0, I less than array dot length, I plus plus console.log array con like I, it's messy. So that's the for loop. I said the for loop is going to be most useful when you need to do something a certain amount of times. let's also talk about the while loop. It's another one you can use. And there's these other ones that you can look at in the notes. I think these are like maybe more down the road, a little more specific, but let's look at a while loop. So a while is just, you say it like this: while the condition is truthy or true, you're going to just continue running this code. So let me give you a quiz right here. What is this going to do?
The condition is true to console log and say here.
Yeah, but I mean, just think of while true console.log here. So, but more specifically, what is this?
How do we know if it's true?
It's just going to repeat it a bunch of times.
Yeah, it's going to repeat it infinitely. So boom, now I'm in another infinite loop. So yeah, when we do a while loop, so it's as long as this condition is true, we're going to just keep running this loop. So let's say with this, we want to like count to 10. So I would, come up here, declare a variable, let I equal to 0, I, less than 10, or while I is less than or equal to 10, console.log I. So now it's just infinitely console.logging I, because I'm not changing I. So I can hit Control C, get out of that. But I could do something like this. I could do I++. So while I is less than 10, let's log it, and then let's increment it. There's some other keywords here that you can use in a for loop, or you can use in a while loop. Let's just do this. Let's say if I is equal to 5. And I'm going to do this up here. Order of this does matter. So I'm going to, before I log I, I'm going to check to see if it's equal to 5. If it is equal to 5, I'm going to say continue. I'm going to use this continue keyword. Oh, I'm stuck in an infinite loop again. I need to do this I++ right here. All right. Or I could just do it like this. Let's do it this way. So what's going on here is I'm continuing, but I never incremented I. So I need to do that right here. Let's run this. So if I equals 5, I'm going to add 1. And then it's going to continue. So it kind of skips over, like it kind of breaks out of the loop, but it goes back into it. So if I don't have the I++ here, what's happening is I'm actually stuck again in an infinite loop where I is 5, and I'm just saying, hey, continue. I could put a console.log to show it here. So there's that infinite loop. I'm getting stuck here. So I would need to, if I want to use this continue, that's all the continues. This is more, I just want to show what the continue is doing. It will continue the loop, but it won't do any of the code below it. Like it kind of like just says, okay, let's go back to the loop and start over. So that's when I run this, I get 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. I skip 5 because the log's down here. And then I go to 6. There's another one also I could do, like if I equal 8. I can do a break. So let's see what break does. So a continue will like skip. It'll like, hey, okay, let's just skip the rest of the section and continue on with the code. But if we do a break, that actually breaks out of the loop. So it no longer cares that I is not less than or equal to 10 because I said break. So that is a while loop. The most common loops we're going to use in this class are these loops to loop over arrays. But there are sometimes you want to do something and it has nothing to do with an array. So cool. Yeah, there's other loops. I'll let you kind of look at those later. But yeah, because a lot of them you kind of also need to like know about arrays and objects. So we're almost getting there. Let's start talking about functions and kind of also just to show you this. So, I just got done with this demo. I don't really think I'm going to do much more with loops. I think this would be a good time for me to push this up to GitHub. I would do a git add, git commit -m, kind of describe what I did. Oh, that was like a loop demo. And then push up to master, git push origin master. And then I could now start on to the next section, which would be functions.js. Cool. All right. So functions in JavaScript. So let's first what is a function? Anyone know? I know some of you are done some coding. If you've done some coding, you've run into functions. I like to think of functions as just like small programs that we rewrite. They're like the smallest program we can write. Just they should be very simple. They do like one thing essentially. So it's a way we can. So computer science and coding is all about taking very complicated problems and breaking it up into smaller problems. That's what you're going to learn how to do as when you're learning how to code. The better you can do that, the easier your life is going to be. Because the problems we face as programmers are insanely tough. But if we can break them down into little pieces, then those become a lot easier to solve. And functions are kind of like the base unit of that, of being able to break down a problem into something very, a little more easy to wrap our head around. So
is it easy? Is it better to just have a function only take care of one function instead of a bunch of different things? Does that make sense?
Will you say that again?
Do you want to have a function only do one thing, or do you want it to do a bunch of things? Yeah,
you really want your function to do one thing.
Okay.
If you're as you're starting out, I wouldn't worry so much about that. Just have your functions work.
Yeah.
But ideally if you're saying this function does this and it does that and it does this, the and, if you're using and to describe what your function's doing, those should probably be their own separate functions.
Okay.
Now that's not to say it's kind of, and that's why I'm kind of maybe glossing over this, like don't worry about it, because you could have a function that really, like when you look at it, it's doing a lot of things, but really, I mean, really what it might be calling a lot of other functions that are doing the work. So your function could say, well, it's actually doing 5 things here, but all of that logic is put into different functions. So for now, let's have a loose rule of like trying to keep these simple and have them do one-ish thing, you know, but don't get hung up on that right now when you're learning. So let's look at just in JavaScript. There's a couple different ways to write functions. I'm going to show you 2 ways that you're going to commonly see. So let's just do a basic function. So here's the syntax. So we use the function keyword, then like a variable, we give it a name. And this message, the name of the function we come up with. And it should be descriptive. So what do you think this function is going to do? It's going to say hello. It's going to console.log hello. So I use the function keyword, I give it a name, I use these parentheses, and then I give it the curly brackets. And then within the curly brackets, I can do stuff. And yeah, this function, I called it say hello. So we're going to have it say hello. This is the function, you know, where you'll hear this like define it. You might also, you know, we're declaring a function here. So this is like the function definition. You'll hear it be called the function definition, or we're declaring a function, or we're just creating a function. We do this once. We declare a function once. And then later we can invoke or, you know, or call the function. We can do this, you know, n times, n being just, you know, any amount, any number of times, as many as we need. So I'll go ahead and call this function 3 times. Go to my terminal, node functions.js. There's also the arrow syntax that I'll use quite a bit, where we define our function as a constant. Let's call this say hello again. Let's do Spanish. Let's say hola. For right now, there are differences, but for now, I'm going to say these functions, this is the exact same thing. It's just different syntax to declare these 2 functions. So you might ask, well, why are there 2 different ways to write these functions? And yes, they do behave differently, but for now, these are going to like do the same thing. These are both, in my mind, okay ways to write a function. And for us, they're going to do the exact same thing. So this is like new. I'll just say this. This is new with ES6 version of JavaScript. Cool. So there is the 2 ways I'm going to show how to write functions in the course. I'm probably going to I'll stick with both, but you'll see these 2 ways in. I would prefer to stick with one, but there's just so many examples online. I think you kind of do need to just be familiar with both of these syntaxes. but they behave the same for right now. Cool. So I'm just going to get rid of some of these too. All right. So this is like the first part of functions. We define them once and then we can reuse them. That's another key part of functions is we take, maybe a smaller complex task and we do all the logic there, and then we can use it somewhere else. And we can use that function again and again. And, it simplifies our code. Let's look at like parameters and arguments. So let's say we have a, function introduce person. Something I can do with functions is I can when I define them, I can give them parameters. And I'll just say this, defining a function with a param. You can think of a param as a variable that is local to the function. That is, all right, I'll say it this way, that is only visible to the function. So let's just do a little demo with this. So now I can call my function introduce person, but now when I call this function, I can pass it. So here I'm passing my function a argument. So it's called an argument here. So now X just becomes this string, whatever, or this thing, whatever I gave it. Now it doesn't have to be a string. I could give it in an array. Like here, I'm just passing an argument to the function. That argument, like you can think of it becoming that X variable. Now, if I have an introduce person function, like I shouldn't pass it in an array or like a number. It probably makes sense if I, am passing it a person or like a name. And also I showed you, I was calling this X just to show you this could be called anything. I probably shouldn't, just like with naming variables, X is a bad name. I should probably call this something like person. I can say something like this. Hello, interpolate that variable. Did this wrong.
What does that $sign do?
This is interpolation. So remember, this is JavaScript interpolation. So I'm using backticks. And if I do $, and then with the curly brackets, I can now like write JavaScript in here. So person's just a variable. So if I run this code, it's going to interpolate this person variable into that like string. So it's not going to say person, it's going to say John, or it's going to say Jill, and I pass it Jill.
It's like a faster way of writing basically a statement instead of going like hello plus whatever plus like concatenating it all, right?
Yeah, if I wanted to do this as string concatenation, I would have to write it like this. Because I need that space there, and then person. Yeah. Don't use string concatenation, when you have interpolation is, you don't ever use it. Because what I want to do is I'm trying to create this string with a variable, or, and this to be specific, a parameter. So if I don't, and JavaScript didn't have interpolation until ES6. So, before ES6, which was like 2016, that you would have had to have done it that way.
Now that whole code you have highlighted, if you were to cut it out, my code looks the same as yours, but when I run it, it just says the two names. Why doesn't it say the hello?
It doesn't say the two names.
No, it says the two names, but it's not saying the hello.
Probably because you don't have hello. So remember that backticks, that's which is starting my string. So then, but this is nice because now I can write a formatted string. Try doing that with interpolation. It gets a little dirty. So I'm just writing a string, but then I can throw in a variable in here.
Oh, okay. I forgot to save it. That was why.
Oh, okay, cool.
So what's the difference then again with the backticks versus if you put the quotes or just the single quotes?
It's a code clean thing.
Would it do the same thing? with-
Yeah.
oh,
It does the same thing, but
it's cleaner.
and now there's a quote, there's a single quote in there. So now I'm like, damn it, no. Yeah.
Also, it's kind of off topic, but I know you can adjust VS Code where it automatically saves. I think it's just through settings, but I don't like it automatically saves for me.
And when you go down to the little gear on the bottom and click on it, there's an option for automatically saving it right there.
Is it
Yeah,
right?
that's the one.
Oh, that's good. Where is it?
I think it's just the settings.
The cogwheel down the lower left.
Lower left. That one?
No, the little gear.
Oh, that one.
You go into settings. Up a little bit.
Oh, settings. Oh, it's just in settings. Yeah, there's autosave right here.
I have it on all the time, so it saves me from making those little mistakes.
Yeah, if you want to if you do a command comma that pulls up your preferences, a lot of stuff you can do here to customize VS Code. You can do autosave. I don't have it on because when we get to React, when you save something in React, it automatically refreshes the browser, which sometimes I don't want that to happen. So, but I think for you, it can be nice to turn on a Windows save or an auto save. Cool. What time is it? Let's take a break. We'll get back to functions. But just to do another demo, I think this is always a good time for me to commit and push is when we take a break. So then if any of you are curious to look at the code, it's going to be up on GitHub. So I do a git add dot, I'm doing a commit, kind of describing what I did. Then I'm going to do a git push origin master. And then I can take this.
Just to be sure I'm not doing it wrong, I'm just using the terminal in JS. Is that all right?
What do you mean the terminal in JS?
In the not JS, I mean in the Visual Studio, since I have the terminal split bottom. So I'm just saving all the stuff from right there.
Oh, yeah. You're doing a git add.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine.
All right, cool.
Now we shouldn't add this, right? If we have it in the same DPL folder, right?
Yeah, you don't, so you don't need to, unless you're following along, you want to, I'd say with the Git stuff, during lecture, don't feel like you have to follow along with that. I do the Git stuff in lecture, so I can actually push the code up, and then, so now this is on GitHub. So now all of you can go to this link and all of you can like now go see the code. So this is all now available to you.
I've been following along, and just so it's like to save notes, so you can go back and look at it.
Yeah. So this one, you're gonna have all of the code for lecture, every lecture. It's gonna be pushed up on GitHub.
Is the only way we can get it is by clicking on the link in Slack to GitHub, or is there a way you can get to it from just going to GitHub first? The way to get to your, that you just put in Slack, the way to get to that is the only way to get to that by coming into Slack and clicking that link, or is there a way to get to it from GitHub?
I mean, yeah, you could try to find it. This is going to be the easiest way, because the other way is like try to go look through my repos and find it, but I have a lot of repos, so yeah, Slack's going to be the best way. You could, if there's, yeah, you could star it if you star like if there's one you really want to like follow, but yeah, probably just Slack.
Now, what does it mean when your file names are popping up as green?
Your file names are popping up as green?
Yeah, on VS Code.
Oh, that's like that means you have things that are not committed.
To Git?
Yeah. Well, it means, yeah, don't worry about that. It's like, see, right now it's yellow. I've made a change. If I've, if I add it, what color does it go? Oh, I think green is if it's a new file. Or actually, I don't know what green is. What is green?
I think you might be right about the new file. Mine turned green when I made a new one, and then it's not green.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, it's green if it's a new file, it's yellow if you've added it before, but there's a change. But yeah, go ahead, take a break. I'll stick around if there's more questions, but yeah, if you want to take a break, come back at 12.
Hey, James.
Yeah.
So just to kind of review, when it's a 3 equals, that means it's that variable is equal to whichever number.
No, 3 so the 2 equals and 3 equals, they're both seen if two things are like, are they the same? So like if I step into node and I want to see, does 1 equal 1? Well, yeah, that's true, right? But does 1 equal the string 1? Yeah, that's true as well, because it's with the double equal, it's just checking this, like it behind the scenes, it's going to actually change the type and like try to change the type and see if they're equal. But I do a triple equal, it's going to check is the type like this is going to be false just right away because the type's not the same.
And I'm just kind of reviewing with the loops because I was keeping up, but it was kind of getting just a little bit confusing. Now, when you do the plus, so you did like I plus, that's just to add 1 to it every time. Like, what does the plus mean? I'm looking at your loops right now in your GitHub.
Yeah, so that was like, that kind of goes back to the operators. So let's say I have like a very, like, don't even think about this in the context of a loop. Like, let's make a number variable. I'm gonna set that equal to 0. If I do num plus plus, that just adds 1 to my number. So it's kind of like,
So it'd be number and then the addition sign, and then the plus is just like adding 1.
yeah, it's kind of like doing that num plus equals 1. But
Now,
it's-
if you do num plus plus plus, it would equal 2
no, that
or 3.
num plus 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 is going to be like, I don't even know what that is.
It's not. It doesn't register.
I'm kind of confused. Yeah, I wonder what that is doing. Yeah, so num plus plus, it's just so common that languages, because it's just so common you want to add 1 that they gave you this shorthand. But it could also be, you could write it like that, number plus equals 1, or you could write it like number equals num plus 1.
Okay. And then let me see. Now the $, it's called a what is it called again?
A $sign?
Yeah, well, whenever you put the $, in the console log to do something for you, it's
That's string interpolation. So
interpolation.
So here's a string. I'm using backticks. That's just a string. But if I use the backticks and I want to like write some JavaScript in there, I use the $sign and then curly brackets. And see that actually, this is just a string, but the string is not 1 plus 1. It actually evaluates that to 2. So that's the string interpolation right there.
So it's just like doing a command while in the string.
Yeah. So I have this variable num here. So instead of doing, I could like interpolate that. So num is a variable. It's not like, that's not a string. It actually has a value. So like just grab the value of num, it's 4.
So now if you did you had that same string, you put the $, and then you did num plus 1, it'd be that string and then 5.
Yeah, so I could do num plus 1 and yeah. Yeah.
All right. All right, I'm starting to get it. Yeah, I was just slightly a little bit confused with the loops, but I'm understanding it.
Cool.
The thing that I need to review is the greater than, less than. I just need to get that down again.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of information. So, but I think one thing that I caught myself doing this, like when I was learning how to code, I overcomplicated things in my head. Like and I think it takes a couple times to like go through it, but you realize it's really pretty simple. So, but I totally understand, like, especially like, man, with like the if statements, like they're simple, but like in your head, they just get so jumbled, like all the logic. So, yeah, no, I think you're doing good though. Just clarify those things where you're getting tripped up on.
Yeah, whenever I start getting a little bumpy, I'll either ask you right there. If it's too much, I'll just ask you in between breaks. But I'm pretty caught up for the most part.
Cool.
I'm pretty aware of what's going on and how the commands are working and everything. It's just sometimes when you're doing it and it's so much at once, my mind is a little slow to process it because I'm still new to it. So it's like, that's why I got to wait and like break down and reread it and then sort the values out.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I feel that's totally normal. Like I feel like a lot of these concepts when I was learning them, it was like a matter of going them, like learning about them, then trying them, and then relearning about them, then trying it again, then like looking at a different resource explained in a different way. So, and then,
All right.
yeah,
What time do we come back, you said? Well, basically 11. Yeah.
right now. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's fine. I'd rather at least have those questions answered.
Oh, I need to stand up. Man, oh, man.
I'm back. I'm just having a snack. I'm still trying to adjust my eating schedule from work.
Nice. Okay, functions, so I'm trying to think about what I want to talk about with functions next. All right. We're going to be doing a lot with functions, so I'm going to keep it a little brief. JavaScript is it's like functions are like they're considered first class, means you can like have functions take functions and functions can return functions. It's a very, and it's also a very like functional programming language. The web is very asynchronous. It's like not linear. So functions are very vital in JavaScript. I mean, they are in all languages, but we do a lot of stuff with functions. So we're going to spend a lot of time throughout this course talking about functions. So this is definitely something, you know, as you're going through your homework, really the more, I would say, you know, spend a lot of time with functions. So something we've been doing a lot of too is we've been using a lot of console.logs. And that's fine, you know, we don't have like a website yet to do this. So we need to be using a lot of console.logs. But I want to talk about what functions are going to do. Like they're usually not going to log stuff. Once we get into like React, our functions are probably going to return a value. So let me kind of demonstrate the difference between a console, like a function doing a console.log and a function returning a value. And let's just stick with a very simple example of a function. So I'm going to do a, you know, function. I'm just going to make an add function. It just takes two numbers and adds them together. So I'm going to call the function add. I'm going to give it two parameters. I'm going to call these parameters number 1 and number 2. And then on this first one, and I'm going to, yeah, I'm just going to do a console.log num1 plus num2. Or let's just do this. Okay, let's do it like this. Okay, fine. And then I'm going to call my add function. I need to exit out of node. All right, well, cool. We're getting this. This is not intentional, but what's going on here? Why am I getting nan?
Oh, is it because you didn't give it any parameters?
Yeah, I didn't give it any parameters. So if I were to like console.log, let's just console.log number 1. See, number 1 is undefined. And if I do undefined plus undefined, that's not undefined plus undefined is not a number. So yeah, I forgot to actually pass that some arguments. So this add function, it's expecting to get past, you know, these two arguments. So when I call the function, that's where I'm going to actually pass them. So 1 and 1. So there we go. So there's my 2. But I'm console.logging num1 plus num2. This is not like, if I was writing a add function, this is probably not how I'm going to write it. How I'm going to write it is with a return keyword. I'm going to say return num1 plus num2. So now when I run this, well, it's not really logging anything to the console because I'm not saying console.log. What if I just console.log this add function? I went into node. Sorry. Node demo.js. That's not the right one. Now it's logging too. So now this function is returning, it's going to do the work and then it's going to return that value. So what I might do in code is I might throw a value of a function into a variable. And that's just 2.
So all you did right there was just give it a name.
Give what? Here I'm, well, let me ask you this. So one of the things I like to try to like get you to do is, I mean, and we can do this right here because we can see all the code. What is add, what really is this? When I say add 1 and 1, like if I were to do, here's another little quiz, kind of trying to show you what I mean. If I do type of add 1 and 1, what would you expect this to output?
But it's a number. The type is a number.
Yeah, that's a number. So let's run that. So number. What would you expect that to?
False.
That's false. Equal to, that should be true, right? So this add 1 and 1, you can kind of like think about it like as a, I mean, I know it's math, but when you start reading code, you can just like evaluate this in your head because since it's a simple function, like the computer is going to run this function and it's going to return 2. So 2 does not equal 3. Add 1 and 1, okay, return those 2 numbers added together, that's 2. That's true. Return type of add 1 and 1, that's type of 2. That's just a number. What if I did console.log add 1 and 1? What is that?
A string.
Yeah, that's going to be a string. What string is it going to be?
Just 11, like 1, 1.
Yep, that'll be 11. Oh, that's an error right there.
So that's just adding 2 strings together.
That's, yeah, this is doing, if I give it a string, it's going to do string concatenation. If I give it 2 numbers, it's going to do addition. So string concat, so this plus sign, it's a different, like with strings, it's a different operation than it is with numbers. What if I do, if I add the number 1 to the string 1? That is also actually 11 because it actually converts 1 into a string and gives me back the string 11. So something about JavaScript, when you write these functions, it doesn't really, and this is where I was saying that the first day of class, you need to kind of be mindful of the type of data you're working with because JavaScript's not going to really help you with that. And And there's actually, you'll see a term or a language called Typescript, which is a typed version of JavaScript. It actually makes you come in here and say like, hey, I expect that to be a number. I know a couple of you have like worked with Java. Like Java will make you do this. It'll make you declare the type of these arguments. As a JavaScript person, you need to kind of keep in the back of your mind, oh, my add function, I need to pass it. When I use this function, I need to pass it two numbers. Because if I pass it a number and a string, you might get unexpected results. So let's do another little brain teaser. What about this? What if I did add? So I'm doing my add function.
It'd be 4 and 6.
Yeah, that's 4 and 6. But then what am I doing?
Would it,
I'm
would
adding
it
those.
multiply it after?
It's gonna be 10.
Yeah, that's going to be 10 because I'm going to, just to kind of run through this, the computer will like, it'll call this add function and it's like, oh, I need to add these two numbers together. So that's 4. So I'm going to add 3 and 3. That's 6. Okay, well now I can add 4 and 6.
Oh,
So that's 10. Oh, sum. So sum's already been declared, so I'll just change the name to someone. There's my 10. So when we're talking about returns, let's talk about one more thing with returns. A function can only return one thing. So let's say we have like a, is, I'll do this as an arrow function, is, what should we do? Let's do like an is even function. Or let's get a get, what's another word? Or I'll just call this even or odd. This is going to take a number. And this is going to return the string odd if the number is odd, and I want it to return even if the number's even. So I'll just do my little mod again. If number mod 2 equals 0, return even, else. So we kind of did this example. If else, but I want to, instead of logging, I'm going to return. So I said a function can only return one thing. I can have multiple returns in here, but once a function returns, it's done. So let's do this. Let's do I'll just give this a variable a bad name, x equal even or odd, and give it 3. What would you expect this to log?
Odd.
Okay, let's guess odd. If I have okay, let's look at this. I told you a function can only return one thing. Once it hits the return, it quits. I just returned taco right at the start. What is this going to log now? It's like taco. So it hits that return and then it's done. And you can actually, I don't know if you can tell, it's grayed out. And if I look at this, it's saying unreachable code detected.
And that's because it's already returning taco, so there's no need for the function to carry on.
Yeah, because I just like kind of wanted to show, yeah, once you return from a function, it just stops. But there might be cases like this where you do want to return different things. But you do it on a condition. And actually, to get nitpicky on style, I really shouldn't write this as an if else. Let me show you how, and this is really nitpicky, but just a little, if you're talking about, why I don't need to write this as an if else, I can just write this like this. I can get rid of that else, because I'll first check if my number is divisible by 2. If it is, I'm going to return even. And then that function's done. If it's not, then I just return odd. So it's a little, I'll leave it as the if else. But technically, I don't need the else there. Cool. So I think we're going to spend a lot more time with functions. But I think that's like the functions very basic 101 right there. So I think that's a good place to stop though with functions, because that I think gives you hopefully what you need for the homework. So yeah, I do want to talk once again, just briefly. So we're going to talk about 2 more things, and then this should cover all of those topics in the notes. So all of these concepts, and let me say this, all these concepts are, they're very fundamental, but they're very important. And I know there's like a lot of nuance and details in these that we're kind of just glossing over. You're going to get a lot of practice with these throughout the course, like variables, data types, operators, conditions. These are just going to be with us the whole course. So you're going to get a lot of practice with them. So if you're not quite, if they're not quite connecting, on the first or second day, that's fine. That's normal. I think a lot of these concepts can take a while, and even, you can always go deeper, and like there's still things about like functions and arrays that like I'm learning about. So it's kind of like, it's one of the things about coding. It's kind of like a never ending, it's like a fractal, just keeps on going. Never ends. Which makes it really frustrating, but nice. It's exciting. Never gets boring. Always is frustrating. Cool. So actually, I'm going to okay. I'm going to show you a demo. Just watch this. Don't follow along. So I created an arrays.js. Let me just make a change here. Hello, not hell. Okay. So going back to GitHub, I think there might be some confusion, like why do I have to do a git add dot and then a git commit? A git add dot. So if I look at my changes, I have changed this functions.js, and I've also added this new arrays.js. Let's say I want to make a commit and push up to GitHub, but I only want to push up this functions.js because my arrays.js is broken. So I don't want to like push that up to GitHub. So what I can do, like if I do a git status, just to kind of look at this, is I can go ahead and I can just add a specific file. So when I'm doing an add, I'm getting that file staged to be committed. So now that I've added just the functions file, now I can do a commit. And it's only going to commit the changes that were made with the function. Then I can push that up to GitHub.
So whenever you use the add period, it's gonna do everything, every project in that folder.
Yeah. And for now, that's fine. Just keep it like that. I don't want to get too much into GitHub. I just want to give you a little like, that's when you do, yeah, exactly. When you do the git add dot, it's just going to add everything. And I think that's fine for now. But I kind of wanted to show you, well, the reason it's there is, well, I can actually add specific files. Like I don't have to add this one file because maybe I don't want to. And then if I go to GitHub, that arrays.js is not in my GitHub. But if I look at my functions, that has all of the changes that I just did with my functions. And then later I can come in, I can fix that. I can do a git add, git commit m, array file added, push origin master. And then I can add that array file later, push that up to GitHub. I go back here. Now it's in there. Cool. Sweet, what time is it? Okay, so I have to, sorry, I should not. I have to kind of go through these pretty quick, just so you have enough to get through with homework. So the homework today, you're probably going to have like 2 days to work on it. So get through as much as you can, but you can expect to have probably at least part of tomorrow working on it. So let's look at arrays. Arrays are like super like fundamental in all common like coding languages. It's just when we think of arrays, just think of a list. I mean, think how common list of things are. So in JavaScript, to make a list or an array, we just use curly brackets or square brackets. I can like store this to a variable. So like let nums equal 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So what can arrays be? It can be, an array. In JavaScript, it can be an array of anything. So we could have arrays of Booleans. You can actually mix match types in JavaScript. So I could have some like numbers, like some strings. Whatever. So I can a Boolean, nil, or null. So I can have different types of data in an array. I would say that's generally a bad thing in general. In general, you want type of data uniform. And what I mean by that, like this nums array, they're all numbers. It's an array of numbers. This is an array of Booleans. It's in general, you're not going to want to do this where you have like numbers and strings and whatever. There are use cases where this is useful. But yeah, by and large, we're going to say, hey, we're expecting our arrays to have the same type of data. To a nested array. So what could array have? An array could have an array in it. So you can have an array of arrays. I mean, you could have an array of arrays of arrays of arrays. Like this can just infinitely loop or nest. But we'll just keep it one level deep for now. Okay. So let's talk about accessing items in an array. Access. So we've seen this. That is going to be, by index. And arrays start at 0. So console.log nums at 0. What is that going to log? Let me make this a little more confusing. Let's do 2.
Did you mean nums or no?
Oh, yep. That is going to log a big old fashioned error. So let's do nums.
So it's gonna log the first list of array, the 1 through 6, and then the 2 next to it.
No, it's gonna grab one of these values. Which value?
Oh, so then it would be 2.
3. 3.
Oh, wait, 3.
Yeah, it's the 3.
0,
Because
1, 2.
yeah, it's confusing because these are numbers and I'm counting from 1 to 6. But yeah, it's going to grab the 3 because 3 is the second index because we start from 0.
Oh, it's 0.
1, 2. So that grabs 3.
That makes sense.
I need to call this right. No.arrays.js. Cool. So that grabs 3. Let's look at this nested one. So what if I do, so I'll leave that there so we have it. Nested array at 1. What is that going to be?
It should be 4, 5, 6, right?
Yeah, it's going to be that array 4, 5, 6. So how do I grab the 6 off of this array? Well, this nested array 1 is just, you can think of that as an array. So now I want to grab that array and then I want to grab the second thing off of that inner array. And that's how I grab the 6. So I'll have to throw both of those in. So that grabs me the array 4, 5, 6. And then, yeah, I can just index the second thing on that array, which grabs me 6. Cool. So there's some common methods on the array. Let's just do like console.log, like nums.length. So that will give us the length of the array, which is 6. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 things in there. If I want to add something to a array, I can do a, let's do this, add item to array. That's going to be very common. I can do a nums, I can do a push.
Can you explain the nums length one more time? Because how would it be 6 if you start with 0?
The length is just however many things I have in my array.
Oh, but to actually access the array, you would have to start with the 0.
Yeah, so here's a little brain. How do I grab? So how to grab the first thing in array? An array, well, that's just going to be, so if I'm doing my nums, that's just going to be nums at 0. Because, you know, it's 0 index. I always know that's going to be the first thing. That one's a little easier. How do I grab the last thing in an array? And let's just like, I can look at the size here, but you know, arrays, you generally are not going to know. Like I can look at it and count it's 6, but what if I don't know how long it's going to be? How do I grab the last thing?
You can just do the length of the array, right?
I can, yeah, I can use the nums dot length. Let's do that. I'm also going to do a console.log right here, so I can see these logs. Okay. That's undefined. This is where, yeah, this is where it's not quite, what do I need to do with the length?
-1.
Yeah, I need to -1 because it's a 0-based index. So I take the length, but I need to -1 to grab the last item. There we go. So that's how you can grab the last item in the array. I have like a really horrible joke that it's always just so bad, but there's 2 common errors in coding. They're the 2 most common. There's the undefined error, the stack overflow error, and the off by 1 error. Oh, damn. Yeah, there's your good coding joke for you. No, the off by 1 error, it gets you a lot of the times. So so yeah, if we want to add something to an array, we use the push method. We can just console.log nums. Let's go ahead and make that like 10. So that adds, you know, 10 to the end of the array. If we add, I should say add item to end of array. If we want to remove item, we can use the pop. So we have these, so we can add to the end, we can remove item, or I should say remove a last item. There's other methods. So these are all like adding at the end or removing from the end. You could do like a shift, nums.shift. And it's gonna be like X. I'm gonna like, oh wait, oh that, no, sorry, it's unshift. So unshift adds to the first of array, or we could do shift to remove the first item from the array. So there's these different methods, you know, to like add the item to the end, or add it to the start, or add it, you know, remove it from the start. So remove from start. Another pop shift. So there's a there's going to be a lot of methods on arrays, and let's say, you know, you're new to JavaScript and you want to like remove the last item from the array and you don't know how to do that. How are you going to figure that out? Starts with a G. Google. Yeah. So especially with when you're working with like these, you know, when you can get down to a question like that, and you know, you don't remember how to remove item from array JavaScript. Boom. 9 ways to remove elements from arrays. You can like find all of these methods, because maybe you want to remove something from like not the start or not the end, but you want to remove something from like the middle. So you can come in here and like look at some examples. So this is where Google, you know, becomes your best friend. So, you know, there's like Splice. So we could look at the Splice method. It's like starting at index position 0, remove 2 elements, bar baz, and retains few queues. So the Splice method, it's going to start at this, whatever index you give it, and then removes how many elements you say. So Splice is one you can, you know, get very specific with. So if we do on array of numbers here, if we do a splice 2 and 2, well, it's going to go to the second index and then it's going to remove 2 of them. So it's going to remove 3 and 4.
Wait, what do you mean by the second index? Can you explain that again?
Yeah, so when I say second index of the array, so that's, remember 0, index 0, 1,
1, 2.
So if they're saying start at the second index, that's 0, 1, 2. So here they're saying start at the 0 index, so that's really start at the first thing.
And then what's the second splice thing?
That is how many items to be removed.
Okay, so it'd start at the.
So yeah, when you're going through these and like you're going through an article, like you know, something like this, the splice method can be used to remove elements from an array. The first argument, and this is where, you know, since we're learning about functions, we can now use other people's functions. We're gonna like, this is just, splice is a function built on the array in JavaScript. So what it's saying is the first argument like that specifies the location to, you know, where we should begin adding, removing elements. The second argument shows how many numbers, elements to remove. And then there's like a third argument that we can add elements to the array. Another one is just, so you can Google this stuff. There's also like just JavaScript arrays. If you go to like, so with all of these, all languages are going to have like official docs. So for JavaScript, that's going to be like Mozilla, this MDM web docs. So with the arrays, I can then go to look at, see what kind of methods are on in an array. So what can I do with an array? So there's quite a bit of things. These are all the methods. And then, you know, you can get some descriptions about what these are doing. And then if you click on one, you can see like an example.
So array reverse would just reverse the whole array. I see there's an array reverse on the left side.
Array, yeah, looks like reverse sort. Yeah, so this is like when you're like trying to think about what you can do, like, and I'm one, because I have a horrible memory. So like, you know, rely on the docs, you know. I think it's more important to kind of have a general idea of what you can do with an array. Like, I know I can sort in an array. I know I can like find an item. I know I can like remove items. I know I can add items. I might forget exactly how to do it, but I know I can like Google to get the exact syntax. And then when you go to like a different language, like when we go to Ruby, or you go learn a new language like Python, well, it's like, well, I know in JavaScript, I can like push an item to the start. I'm sure I can do that in Python. So that's when you like switch languages. The function name might be different. It might not be filter, it might be like select. And the syntax might be different, but the core concept of what it's doing, it's going to be there.
So that's why they say when you start to have an understanding of languages, you can kind of be a little more universal.
Yeah, for sure. So once you learn that first language, then it's definitely a lot easier to learn other ones. I mean, there's definitely differences. It's but there's a lot of similarities. It's not like you learn Spanish and then you have to go learn Chinese, like those. I don't think there'd be too many distinctions between that. Cool. Sweet. What time is it? Okay, so those are arrays. So let's come. So since we talked about functions a little and we've talked about arrays, let's talk about just really briefly. And we saw this example looping over in array. So let's do this. I'm going to say let names. Let's just do some strings. John, George, Sally. I come up with like the most generic names. Okay. So something we want to do often is we want to loop over arrays. Let's also do this. Let's combine our function. Let's say I have a function. Const say hello. That takes a person. We did this in our last example. We console.log. Actually, I'm going to return. I'm going to use the return keyword. Return hello. Backticks here because I'm going to do some interpolation. Hello, person. So I could do this. I could say hello, to names at 0. I could call this function and pass them the individual name. Node arrays. Why is that not? Oh yeah, I'm not logging this. Let's do console.log, because remember the say hello just returns the string. So now I need to log that. So yeah, I could do it like this, where I just console.log, I go through, grab the name by the index and log them. But yeah, what if I want to do both of these things? I want to go through each of these people and I want to like call this function on them. Well, that is where we iterate over arrays. And there's a lot of methods. But let's just see the for each for now. Let's just stick with this one. So what I can do is in an array, I can call this for each method. And then this for each method, so this for each is a function and I can pass it a function. I'm going to comment out these console.logs. And actually, I am just going to have this sorry. This is just going to be easier if I have this console.log this. This will be out in GitHub if you want to make these changes. I'm just sorry, I just changed my mind. I'm going to have this have my function actually console.log. But look what's going on here. I have my names array. I have this say hello function that gives one argument and it goes through and it just logs hello. So what I can do here is I can call a for each function and I can pass this a function that goes through each person and runs the function. Very useful. to go through each thing of an array and then perform a function. I'll select this out since I just kind of changed that pretty quick.
So all that's telling you is to make sure it says hello to each person with that name.
It's just saying, hey, go through each thing and yeah, just say hello or append the thing to it. So I could have strings, I could have a number in here, but it's just go through each thing in the array and perform this function.
Okay.
I could also write this as like a with a just a anonymous function. So let's look at that really quick. So I can actually just define a function right here. So this is called this is not named. I'm just passing this a function. Like in JavaScript, that is a function. It doesn't have a name. It's not stored to like a const. It's just a anonymous arrow function. So unnamed arrow function. This is a unnamed function that has one parameter called n. So what I can do here, so there's two ways I can do this. I can either write a function, that has the parameter and do something with that parameter and then pass that to the for each. Or I can just directly write a function that doesn't have a name, that's not stored to a variable, that's I pass directly to my for each function. And then this n parameter, that's just going to be each thing in the array. What should I call this n parameter? Any ideas of a good name for that?
And say for each name.
Yeah, that's, if I have an array called names, I think it would make sense to call that name. Because then that becomes very readable, like names dot for each. Here's a function, give it each, do like it's a name. Should probably also get rid of that one there.
And that for each is just a function.
Yeah, for each is a function on an array. So JavaScript, like if I go to this reference, this array reference, I should find the for each. So I could go through and kind of like look at the examples that or how to use this function. So it looks like I can give this like a second argument, or like I can, the function I give it I can pass a second parameter, or defines a second parameter, which would be the index. So I can call this I. And that's just going to be the index. So 0, that's just going to be 0, 1, 2, 3, however many. But that's just how, JavaScript is defining that. So if you want to know how the for each works, really, you want to get details, you come into the documentation. There's other of these iterator methods. There's for each. For each, there is, sorry. If you want to, you can kind of look at some of these. There's map. There's filter, there's reduce, there's every. There's a lot of these methods we call. We're going to spend essentially a full day on these, maybe tomorrow. So we're going to get a lot more practice with for each, which is really going to start combining some of the concepts we learned with functions and arrays. So, but that's, I'm gonna stop there with arrays because I want to spend the last quick little bit, 10 minutes or so with objects. And like I think what we'll do tomorrow is we're really gonna do, where we start combining arrays and objects and functions. So we start kind of combining everything together. So we're going to like definitely be reviewing this and building on this tomorrow. So let's just talk about objects really quick. So we have arrays and we have objects. And I'm gonna like oversimplify the definition of objects right now for JavaScript. But really for now, I'm just gonna say objects are essentially key value pair stores. So think of like a dictionary. Think of describing a person. So if I have like a dictionary, and here's how we do objects in JavaScript, it's with the curly brackets, and then it's the key value. So like the key could be like, the word. And then the value would be the definition.
I noticed you're using const. When do you know when you use const versus let or whatever?
Oh, so yeah. I would say for now so let me talk about, so first of all, with functions, or let's just talk about, like, just to review what const is. So when I make something a constant, remember I'm expecting that thing to never change. So like a function, I would make a constant because I would never expect my function to change or be reassigned. So to give you an example, and it really just depends. Let's say I have something like age, like I'm grabbing a user's age. Should that change or should it not? It depends. I don't know. Like, what is your app doing? If it's like, I just want them to log in and like, they're just going to be there for a day, like logged in for a day, and I grab their age and it's like 34. And I might want to use that variable throughout my app, but it's just for that day. Then yeah, I probably want that to be a const because I probably don't want their age to change. But if I'm having an app where like I'm expecting it to like, I don't know, where it's okay if it changes, then I'd want it to be a let. So that is the difference. I'd say if you're in doubt, if you don't know, just use let. And don't worry about it changing, because that's a little more nuanced.
For const though, like something like a date of birth, that would always stay the same, right?
Yeah, I
Like
mean,
you would use const for date of birth or something like that.
probably like, let's say, yeah, like that'd be a good one. Like because like, especially with JavaScript, if you're working with a backend, like the backend, and like, so I don't think it'd be crazy to say like a date of birth could change. Maybe someone entered it in wrong and they have to like update it. But if I'm like grabbing data from a database, I'm not going to be changing, and I'm not planning on changing those values, then I would make them a constant. So like, yeah, date of birth or name or age, because it's like I'm grabbing them from a database. I'm using them in my program, And it's more within the context of my program. I don't expect them to change. I think that's the takeaway. Cool. So this is one way we could use a object key value pair. Another way, like think about a person. Let's do like Bob. Because, you know, people, they're all going to have, like every person's going to have a name, right? And I could expect all people to have an age. Like Jill. So I can, there's kind of like these two different cases where like you can think about something like a dictionary where it's like, you know, there's a word and then there's a definition. Or you could think about something like a person where you could have like many people that share these attributes like name and age, but the values are going to be different. But objects give us a way to describe these things. And you can really think of them as just keys and values. So with a person, if I want to access, you know, a key, I use the dot notation. So it's a console.log bob.name. Console.log bob.age. Oop, I need to do node objects.js. So there's the name Bob is Bob, the age is 21. Trying to think if there's, I'm probably going to keep objects pretty simple for today. You know, I could come here and I could say like, hey, you know, Bob dot, I can add attributes after I declare it. I could say Bob dot, I don't know, eye color. So even though it's like Bob's not defined with an eye color, I can add it later on.
Now, why would you not put that as a let?
Because this is not a very, like Bob is a variable. What I'm doing is I've already have the variable declared. The variable name is Bob. Bob is a type of object. What I'm doing down here is I'm adding another key. So I'm adding an eye color key on Bob. It's like essentially now Bob looks like this.
All right.
That's what that's doing.
And then just so my notes are right with where it says let Bob equal name Bob, age 21, and Jill, those are the keys.
Yeah, name and age are the keys.
Okay.
And there's a way to grab the key so I can console.log. I think it's object.keys, pass it the object. So I do object.keys. Object has the keys name, or sorry, Bob has the keys name, age, and eye color.
Okay. I was just making sure I had my notes laid out right.
Cool. Let's kind of combine this. Let's say I have like let, because we're going to see a lot of this, especially once we get into like React and Rails. Something you see a lot of is arrays of objects. So now I have this people array whose first thing is Bob, whose second thing is Jill. How would I grab Jill's name?
people dot Jill.
So I can't do, because remember, people is a array. So how do I access an item in an array?
So would it be
Oh,
Jill.name?
one. It'd be
Oh,
one.
in an array? Oh,
I first got to grab Jill from the name. That's people at one, and then I do dot name. And there we go. That grabs me Jill.
now what would happen if you were to just do Jill.name? It wouldn't work.
Oh yeah, Jill dot name would work. I was more just giving you a little brain, like, oh
Just
yeah,
like how to understand the arrays again.
yeah. So how, like, so if I have an array, I need to first grab the object. So this is grabbing people at one is Jill, and then I can call dot name on Jill.
All right.
And then something else we do a lot of, like, let's say I want to go through each of these people. So here I write it that little anonymous arrow function. So I'm going to go through people dot for each, and I'll write in a function right here. Like, hey, here, I'll give you that person, and let's just console.log. Let's do interpolation here, kind of combine some stuff. So I'll do person. Let's do like a little if statement. So if person.age is greater than 21, we'll console.log. Let's do this as a string, like person dot name, Campbell. Else we'll do a person dot name cannot Campbell. Let's come in here. Let's do Bob and Jill. Well, let's make one of them less than 18. So I can go through my list, call it for each, go through each person. Well, a person is just has an age key and a name key. And then I can, do some conditionals, and I can do different stuff. So Bob cannot gamble, Jill can gamble. There's there's actually a small little error in here. Can anyone see it?
You don't need the else again?
For this one I do, because it's a little weird because I'm doing a console.log.
Oh, okay.
That was with the function when I returned something. A console.log is not going to stop it.
Oh, got it.
This one's like a logic error. It's also my dumb off by one joke error. Let's do this. What if, let's say Bob is 21.
Greater than or equal to 21.
Yeah, Bob cannot gamble. Well, Bob's 21, right? 21, that's legal gambling age. That should be greater than or equal to, or, that should be 20. So yeah, those. Like
so could you put 20 and then just put greater than 2? Wouldn't that work as well?
Yeah, so let's look at this really quickly. So greater than 20 works.
Or you can do 21 greater than equal to.
Greater than equal to 21. Which I would say this way is so when you get into code, yeah, it's not that they're going to work differently. It's sometimes this is better because I would say it's more readable. Because when I think about if someone can gamble, I don't think someone who's over 20 can gamble.
That's true.
If someone's 21 or older, they can gamble. So this, it's more that readability thing. they both work the exact same. But that's something you'll get like a little more nuance with. So as you're writing code, as you're doing your homework, the most important thing that it works. Okay. And
Well,
then,
if you gave somebody an age with a decimal, it wouldn't work the same then, right?
a decimal.
Well,
Yeah, but with this, like I'm expecting, I know age is like in JavaScript, it can be a float or a number, but in this case, I would be expecting age to be an integer.
mhm.
But if it was a float, would that screw up stuff? I still don't think it would. It'd be the same, right?
Oh no, I meant like if you did the 20, if you did greater than 20,
Oh yeah, and there was a float.
and that was a float,
Yeah.
then it wouldn't be the same, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. So these are the two most important things, is that your code works. And then once your code works, I think then you get into things like, is it readable? I would say that's the next important part. How readable is your code? Readability.
Have you read some pretty sloppy codes that you can't really break down?
I mean, yeah. But it's not that it's a lot of times it's just like code can get complicated. So readability, helps. That's like, it's the little things like what I was saying earlier, like the loops, the for loop. Like to me, the for each is a lot more readable than the for loop. And then we have other functions that we'll get into later that do what the for loop's doing, but then they have like these little special things they do. So yeah. Readability is also important. Then you get into things like how efficient. How come I cannot spell efficient? So I mean, the efficiency really like depends, maybe if you're Google, this is pretty important. This can depend on the use case. But there is definitely, I think there's generally a convention, worry about efficiency later, like worry about making your code work first. I think readability does become important, and this is, this takes practice. Like I said, as you're going through your homework, really just focus on these two things. I would say, yeah, efficiency is like, definitely don't even worry about that anytime soon. Cool. What time is it? Ooh, we've gone a little late. I don't like to go past 1. So I'm going to go ahead and commit. Let's kind of be done for the day. I'll push this up to master. So you should have those demos. When we get back, so I'll have you take lunch, and when we get back, we'll let's meet back in the TA channel. So that was the channel we met in at the last part with Michael, and then I'll give you out your homework. I mean, your homework is in that repo if you want to start looking at it, but we'll wait until lunch to actually go over it. Sound good?
So back at 2.
Let's do, since we went a little later, let's do 2:10. So I was
Okay.
like, give you an hour, give you time to get a good break in, get outside, go get away from your computer.
All right, sounds good.
Cool. See you in an hour.